things that I have watched people fight over. I mean, forks and knives. All right, like y'all, we billing $750 an hour for some forks and knives. You could go buy some more forks and knives.
Totally.
I mean, they're not an heirloom from your great 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 grandmother. What are we talking about? This has nothing to do with these kids. It's about hurting the other person.
You're listening to Divorce Party with Monica Casey and Tom Arnold. We cannot wait to speak with our guest today. She is truly fabulous, a fashionista, a mother, a judge, and the host of We the People's Court and Paternity Court TV. Please welcome to the show, Your Honor, Judge Lauren Lake. Hello, Your Honor.
Hello, how are you?
Great. Good to see your face.
It's so good to see yours. Hi there.
How are you? What an honor.
I am well.
I'm loving the fashions today.
Thank you. How y'all doing?
Good. I love that pony hair rug behind you too.
Oh, thank you.
So we're all part of the Chump-averse of Jeff Lucas. That's how we're all connected.
Yes, we're all chumps. I was first honorary, but I think I've acted enough of a fool over the last 5 years. I think I've been inducted officially now.
Yes. I think your one-liners every show that you're on that are used for the opening of the show the following week are my favorite.
Well, I think your organization is my favorite on the new show. I'm like, I got to figure out how to fold my jeans like this.
Yeah, there's many folding techniques.
Yeah, we don't. I'm a single dad. My kids are 10 and 8. the idea of folding stuff, that is a real art. Like I could wash it, I could dry it, I could do the dishwasher, I could do everything. But Rosa here knows how to fold stuff. Like I will try to fold stuff and put it, and then when she gets here, she takes everything out. It's a real art for.
I love it. And it looks like it could be so therapeutic because, you know, I have my things like I'd rather, I think, fold it pretty and have it look like that than I'd like putting it in the washer and switching it to the dryer. And I can't stand ironing.
Oh,
Right.
I mean, what's an iron? I have one just to have, but I feel like anytime I've ever tried to use it, it doesn't do what it's supposed to do.
I can't stand ironing. I can't.
I feel like if you want something to look nice, you just have to take it to get professionally pressed.
Totally. I'm with you. I do everything. Most fabrics I wear are just, they don't require ironing. And my son too.
Yeah. I got to know Jeff a bunch of years ago before he had kids. You know, I've been a fan of Jeff's from his show, remodeling shows, his personality, which is unique.
Yes.
But that's
unique and infectious.
Yeah.
Yes.
But he certainly has good people on like you guys. You know, he has a great roster of people that keep coming in. And because of that, here we are today. Well, thank you, Judge. Thank you.
It's all connected.
Yes.
Well, I have so many questions for you. Each guest, you know, is unique. And I think obviously you're our first judge that we've had on. We've had lawyers, we've had therapists, divorce coaches, life coaches.
Well, to be clear, I'm a TV judge and I'm a lawyer.
And a lawyer. Yes.
But yes.
I want to know, can you just start us off with how you got into law, what made you want to do it, and how you got into TV?
It's a funny story. I really never planned to be in television. I grew up as, you know, a young girl in Detroit, and both of my parents were had their PhDs and they were professors. So my life was all about education, and it was go to school. I started off saying that I was going to be a singer and be an anesthesiologist. I was supposed to go to medical school. And I'll tell you, when I got to my senior year at Michigan, we're in the Rose Bowl soon, go blue. When I got there, I realized we had this little thing where we went to the hospital and I was like, oh boy. And I was like, I love helping people. I really all my life thought I wanted to do this. Instantly, I knew, I was like, I don't think I could do this every day because I'm very emotionally, I'm like an empath. So I take it on, and something about the hospital would just be, it was like, I don't know if I could do this every day. So I called my parents and I was like, listen, you guys, I really don't think I can do this every day. I don't think I want to be pre-med anymore. I think I want to join the theater program. And did a lot of musical theater. I said, I think I'm a singer. I'm going to do musical theater. And my mom was like, we didn't pay all this money for you to go to school, for you to come up with the grand idea that now you're going to do musical theater. And literally was like, think about it and call us back tomorrow with your real plan. I was like, ooh, and hung up. And I was up all night like, and so I just made it up. The next day, I just said, you know what? I'm thinking about law school. I said, I'd love to tell a story. It's similar to a stage, right? I said, I think I'm going to do that. They were like, great, that works for us. And then that's how it went, just that simple. And really, this went as an attempt to appease my parents. And that's how I went to law school. I went to law school, but fortunately, it kind of worked in the sense that when I did get to the trial advocacy part, it was a dream for me. I mean, talking to a jury, convincing people that my side of the story is the side they need to understand, and advocating for someone who couldn't tell the story as well as I could, it just became a thing. I mean, it almost just felt like this, like you're running through the tunnel, like in the Super Bowl, because it was just like, oh my God, I totally understand why this is such an important role, is because this person could have an extremely valid story, extremely incredible side to this saga, but they can't articulate it in a way that would make people or a judge believe their side. And that led me to represent a lot of fathers. That led me to do a lot of family law. First, I did a lot of criminal defense works, let's be clear, in Detroit, but it moved me into family law. I then got in this kind of, niche of representing fathers, because again, I could tell the unpopular side of the story, and I got that from being a defense attorney. Mm-hmm. And fathers were often given a bad rap in the legal system. And so I started advocating for dads, and then the rest is history. Then the next thing you know, it turned to paternity court. And then now I do a YouTube series called Paternity Matters, where I've continued to kind of advocate and help people recognize and reconcile father-child relationships. That's kind of how I did it.
Yeah. Well, number one, you have great parents. And I would have been very alarmed if you'd have said, I've changed everything, I'm going to be a singer. Even though I'm in the entertainment business, I'd be like, oh no, you're not changing everything.
That's just what they said.
Natural. And it sure worked out for you. I think that men, I was always told this before I had to participate in family court over kid issues. It's changed. It's more like they see, when my dad went to court to get me and my brother and sister, they were pretty open with it. Like, we don't care how screwed up the mother is. In 1964, the mother's going to get the kids.
That's right.
And he fought the good fight. And then in my case, luckily, the day after he quit the court stuff, because they were going to put me on the stand I was for and say who I loved the most, but the day after he quit, my mother came to his office and said, here's the keys to the house. You can have the kids. Like so that I'm grateful to both of my parents for those actions. She knew that she couldn't handle it, and he wanted it. I also think that in my case, when I said, well, we're going to get a divorce. I'm going to get, I got kids. They go, my lawyer said, what do you want? I said, I want 50-50 custody of the kids. And he's like, no, man, maybe when they're 7 and they're fun. And I said, I don't know where I'll be when they're 7. I'm old, but also I've changed I want to raise my kids. I've changed every diaper. And I think that people are surprised when a dad says, no, I want to do this. I want to do the minutia of everything stuff. This is what my whole life has been about, this moment. So yes. I'm grateful to hear people like you that have advocated that. I also know, even though I'm a storyteller, I'm a comedian, I'm an actor, whatever, and I know how to tell stories, telling my story in court, because first of all, you got a
lot of emotion,
post-traumatic stress, like basically, and you got to hopefully get the attorney says, no, I need to understand this in a linear way. What is going on? What are the facts you have? what are your videos? And it took a while because I think it's sometimes it's so traumatic, especially when there's legal abuse, where someone keeps going to court or keeps calling the police over and over for stuff. You kind of get, and it
Yes.
took me a while to get to a place where I could breathe and go, okay, this is how it's been bad for 6, 7 years. Like this is not, it's not okay. It's not acceptable. I've got to figure out a way to deal outside of this. But it's been helpful when I've had an attorney that said, you need to break this down. It needs to be very simple to understand. This is the deal. This is what we're responding to, right? Because you get into a place, and that's why you need an advocate like you that can tell the story.
Curious, yeah, your thoughts about the family. We've just touched on it a little bit in some of our episodes, about family courts and how, do you think they're changing for the better? Or do you think they're still stuck in the past a little? How do you feel about
I
it?
think a little bit of both, right? I mean, I'm 54 years old. So, like Tom, I have watched the system shift. Okay. I've been, even before I was an attorney, I remember years and years ago, my brother, and I think I was maybe in law school then. Yes. When he was one of the first dads I ever knew that strongly, petitioned and wanted joint custody um, of my nephew. And I'm very grateful to my nephew's mother because she did not fight that, right? So growing up, my nephew spent half the time with us and then half the time, and it really for me started this type of a co-parent cooperation between them that helped me later in my life when I experienced divorce. So I think in many ways, the system in terms of father has moved the needle forward. And yet, the presumption that the mother is the better parent, I hate to say it, it remains. Fathers they still have a hill to climb when it comes to, in many instances, convincing the court that this child should be with them half the time. And I do not think that's fair. I think that one thing I love so much about doing paternity court, my first court show, was how much we were able to show, as Tom talked about, that there are, people had seen paternity done one way on TV, and it was very popular, where it's, are you or are you not the father? Usually, if they were not the father, everybody started dancing and I'm not the father, woo, woo, and then the girl would run off and, oh no. And then on paternity court, we were able to do almost the opposite, just as much or more, meaning sometimes the men were petitioning the court to say, I believe I'm the father of that child, and she's not giving me the truth. And I want it because if I am, I want to be my child's father and I want parental rights. Or I want to know if I'm the child's father because I never had a father in my life, and I would never, ever do that to a child, what was done to me. And if perhaps this is my child, I'm going to fight to the death to figure out if it is, and then I want to be a part of their lives. So, in many ways, the mere fact that we see more and more men petitioning the court, more and more men stepping up in this ring and saying, like, look, it's going to be a battle, but I got my gloves on and I'm going to fight for my kids, I think is most certainly a move in the right direction. But we still have to deal with a very archaic value system, which says that automatically the mother is the best place for the child. Now, let me say this, and I was a breastfeeding mother. Early, you too. And so there is a time in a child's life, right, where the nourishment is very much dependent on the mother. And that is a bonding moment and something that is very important. However, what we know now is that that breast milk can be pumped, put into bottles. It can be frozen for a year. Dad could have plenty of it.
Gold
And
bars.
you know what I mean? Like if there's a will, there is a way. And I think once we as a society begin to understand that a child bonding with their father is just as important as a child bonding with their mother, how many thousands upon thousands probably hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people are in this world right now longing for a close, affectionate, loving relationship with their father. And a lot of those disconnections happen after divorce.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. I mean, and I think it usually goes better. Now, in regular court, we have things that we developed over the last 30 years, like drug court, which is a thing I'm involved with, helping people at veterans drug court, where the judges show so much humanity, and law enforcement. And
Yeah.
this guy, we've agreed, this guy does this for a year. He works every day. He tests every day. We will expunge, and the humanity I have seen from judges who are quite frankly usually dicks or sheriffs, and they were all working together on this one thing for this guy or this woman, and the humanity, it's incredible. It's a fairly new thing in the United States. But I think the family court is slower to go. I have certainly been in front of, and each time you get drawn in or you get served or you're nervous. I speak for myself, like, oh, what if this is the time that something comes up and they believe all this stuff and they take the kids away. It's nerve-wracking. You get in front of different judges. Like if you get the same judge twice, they're like, come on, man, this is. But you cross your fingers. I do think that generally the judges think, what is the best thing? The best thing for the kids is not this conflict and not the hostility and not the and of course that is the best thing.
Well, is there ever a light at the tunnel for somebody kind of, similar to Tom's or similar to like the Jeff Engage situation? Like, when does someone finally step in and say, like, we're not going to court anymore, or this is the judgment and this is it? I mean, is it just never ending? I mean, I know you kind of made a joke today, like, those lawyers just bought a house in Cabo.
Yeah, they're buying land, all this. And look, I am a lawyer, so I know.
Yeah.
Okay, there comes a time when you have to realize that the only people who are getting rich rich in financially, rich spiritually, their family, creating generational wealth, are the lawyers. We're billing for all of this because it is our job, right? We're doing a job. And while you all are still hashing out some things, I have a saying that I used to talk about on paternity court a lot, where I'd say, you got to learn how to resolve issues in the living room and in the family room so you don't end up in the courtroom. You have to learn how to negotiate through relationships in difficult times, or you will end up emotionally, spiritually, mentally, financially spent.
Yeah.
And it happened so quickly. And I also said a joke a few weeks ago with Jeff, but I meant it. I said, listen, y'all about to get on my nerves. We about to come over to my house and we're not leaving until we figure out how we're going to work this out, because we're just making our lives miserable. And look, I think because Gage is and I know that he won't mind me saying this because we talk about this openly on the show, but because Gage is attached to Jeff and Jeff is deemed to be what we would call a deep pocket, right? Deep pocket means,
Or at the strip club, a whale.
yes, ample means to continue to pay and to demand and ask for lawyer fees, request the court for lawyer fees. This can just keep going. And let me be clear, because the average dad, and I have to say this because sometimes I feel like when we speak about the celebrity divorce, or when we think about these kind of things, we're talking about certain sagas that there are many men who don't have their kids, don't have the right to have visitation with their kids, or have established parental rights because they didn't have the money to hire lawyers to do this all day and every day. They don't have the time to take off work to go to all of these court appearances. So they just say, screw it. I just have to accept it what it is. There are so many fathers that don't have the mental capacity, right? Where I'm going to go so crazy that it's going to drive me to do something I'm going to end up in jail. So I'm going to let it go because that's not going to hurt anybody. I'll see my child when they're 18, when they come looking for me. Because inevitably, and I tell mothers this all the time, don't be that mother. Don't be that co-parent, because at some point, my grandmother used to say, when it don't come out in the wash, it's coming out in the dry, meaning you may think you got it all working to your benefit. There's going to be a point where that child's going to ask some questions, and that child's going to ask some questions, and that child's going to say, I want to find my father. I want to know where he is. I want to ask him questions. And when he hears his father's side of the story, or when she hears the other co-parent side of the story, it might make sense where they say, that doesn't add up, and turn around and look at that mother, turn around and look at that other co-parent and say, why didn't you do better to make sure this person that was in my life? Why did you watch me not be able to go to father-daughter dances? Or why did I go to father-daughter dance with my uncle, with your brother, instead of my father? And you knew exactly where he was, but you still on some tripped out stuff that you can't change. That's between adults and has nothing to do with me. So there's a lot of that, where the saga of it all, it only affects the child. And Tom said, the court's standard is the best interest of the child. And what we have to remember is parents in a feud is never in the best interest of a child. Children figure that out before they're one. They can feel the energy of the communications when they're infants.
Right.
We have to stop thinking that even though children are resilient, because they do find a way to survive it, that's in our nature. But just because they're resilient doesn't mean we need to put them through this, when if the adults could get themselves together and get in one room and say, this is a mess.
Yeah.
Like, let's solve this.
So is child custody kind of like a privileged asset or thing to get? Like, is there some sort of pro bono or organization to help parents that don't have?
Yep. I always tell, look in your community, look in your community at fathers' rights organizations. They can usually point you in the direction of free legal aid clinics. When I was in law school, I worked at the free legal aid clinic for my university in my senior year. And that's where I gained my perspective about how so many people, are literally marginalized with respect to having legal remedies, or they don't know how to empower themselves with the law. And another great point from this conversation I would add with is that, sometimes people are so fearful of the law, right? And I talk about this on my new court show, We the People. They don't even want to try to resolve a family law issue, because they're too scared that if they come to court, they're going to arrest them on some unpaid parking tickets. People get wrapped up in these little legal dramas where they're too fearful to even come to anybody's courtroom, right? Because they think, something else is going to happen, or something I did 30 years ago is going to come back to bite me, so I can't go fight for my kids. There is so much going on at once when we're dealing with child custody.
My feeling has always been, when we both have good lawyers, it just works. They go, well, what can we get for this couple? They kind of work it out. Okay, that's it. Now let's settle. Let's get them to settle. We're reasonable people. But I think if a person could just keep hiring different that will take a case no matter what, it makes it a little hard. And everything you said is true. And, you do hear that when you're in the middle. Like, my kids have never seen the mom and I together. So there's not like, hey, I miss the old days. But they have seen her do incredible things with have the police, have SWATs, the behavior in front of them. One thing, and I always say this, my dad, when my mother would come over drunk, she was a drug addict and alcoholic, and she would come over just hammered and fall into the Christmas tree or whatever, and my dad would just laugh. And I think he thought, I'm taking the high road here. I don't want to. And I knew she wasn't a mother when I was 4. Like, she'd say it. I want nothing to do with it. I'm not maternal. But my little sister, our mother was her idol. This woman that would come in and be so funny and stuff. And my dad, she ended up moving in with my mom when she was 14 and ends up in prison, of course. Got married and in prison, and just a long story. So what I do with my kids, if something happens that's so over the top, inappropriate, or dangerous, I just take a moment and go, guys, what just happened was not okay. I don't treat people like that. I won't let people treat you like that. And then we move on, because
Yes.
people would say early on, oh, they'll know who the good parent was. They'd go, yeah, don't worry, when they're like 7 or whatever. And I said, I can't trust in that. And I'm not living my life that way. I'm one day at a time. I'm going to be the best parent I can be. And even your story, Judge, okay, when the kid grows up and says, I want to find my dad, and you go, oh, I bet the mom, the bricks came down on the mom. She realized, oh, I've screwed up. But there are people, and I know this from my current experience, that are so narcissistic that there's nothing. It's really always about them. So you don't have that come to Jesus moment you hope for. And so, and my last thing is, all the times I've been to court with this, 8, 9 times, I never lost. In fact, have built out more custody and more things, less contact. All these judges are like, okay, here's how it's going to be. You don't have to talk. You see the kid, you pick them up at school, so and that's always been very helpful to me. And it's always made. And the last thing, I don't know if do you believe in? There's PPCs out here, parental planning coordinator. They're retired judges, and I'm a big favor of these retired judges. We had a great one who, my ex fired because she agreed with me on something, but they come in and they look at everything. They have the power to change custody. They have the power to do everything the court would do, and it's less expensive. It's expensive, but and they can condense the agreement and less contacted.
I think that anything that helps people reach a resolution outside of court is a great exercise. And that's kind of even what we did on paternity court. It was really about non-binding mediation. Now, this wasn't binding, but I can't tell you how many times people, when they felt heard, when they felt like their issues had been illuminated in a way that they never thought they could then come to an agreement with another person. And we saved a lot of families the whole time, the wasting of time going through the family court system by talking them through an issue and talking to them about how to now put this child's name on, put the father's name on the birth certificate, or now that, listen, as a dad, you're going to be responsible for child support. Now, right now, you're not under a court-ordered child support order. So get in there now and figure that out. Or if not, that's coming for you. Like, I think anything that requires people to get talking and get negotiating is so much better than, a court situation. Because I always tell people, either you all are going to figure it out with the help of your attorneys or a mediator, or the judge is going to tell you what it's going to be. And neither one of you all probably will be completely happy, right? Like, some people have to understand, I don't know, there might be 0.1% of people who walk out of a divorce proceeding feeling like, I got everything I want and I'm happy. That just doesn't happen. You're gonna give up something to get something. And the quicker you do that, the faster you get back to raising your kids and focusing on them. And I always say, you've got to love your child more than you hate your ex.
100%.
You just have to. There's no other way.
Yeah, I think that too. What's interesting is with the non-binding, the stuff that you've done, where you said, here's the deal that's going on with you guys. Here's what should be done. Here's to reasonable people will go, okay, I get that. Yeah. But what do you do when there's someone that's just incapable of agreeing, that disagreeing part, or the toxic element of it's pathological. Like,
yeah, you know what you do? You keep spending all your money and you stay in court.
Mm-hmm.
You look at a situation like what we're talking about every day, the saga with Jeff. Like, you just keep going because it's obvious now to everyone. I think people need to understand too, sometimes, like, the lawyers understand what's going on here. I mean, we're going to keep working because that's our job and that's what we must do. Right. But we've already now decided that, party A is tripping, right? She or he, they not trying to resolve anything. They still trying to stay connected to the other person,
yeah.
Whether it's through anger, frustration, or I'm just going to keep getting on your nerves for the rest of my life because I feel like you did something to me that I can't forgive you for. This has nothing to do with these kids. I mean, the things that I have watched people fight over. I mean, forks and knives. All right, like, y'all, we billing $750 an hour for some forks and knives. You could go buy some more forks and knives.
Totally.
I mean, they're not an heirloom from your great 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 grandmother. What are we talking about?
Yes.
Tiffany makes some more knives. Go get them. But it's not about that.
Yeah.
It's a hanging on
Hurting that other person.
It's about hurting the other person. It's about, I know they're ready to move on. And if I keep this going, I find a way to stay in their lives. And you're right, that's pathological. That's something that a lawyer can't solve. That's something a person needs to get some therapy and figure that out, because you're just running yourself on a treadmill. I mean, it's like, I tell people, I'm like, you just running back and then taking off full speed through a brick wall, trying to run through a brick wall. You're not getting anywhere with this, but you want to keep doing it. What are lawyers going to say? Oh, well, I'm not going to do this anymore because why would I want to make $250,000 more dollars? No, they're going to keep going in there and switching a couple.
I'm going to dinner at Catch Steak tonight. See you there.
Look, I'm going to breakfast at Catch Steak. Matter of fact, my kids' lunches are from Catch Steak. Okay, baby? Because I'm making all the money, right? There's only sometimes when lawyers are just disgusted now. And as Tom said, the pathological behavior or the narcissism prevents the lawyer from doing their best work. Then you got to get ready. You got to remove yourself from that client, because what we know is, and this is one thing people don't understand, we watch the way our client treats the other person or the other process. And don't you think we're too stupid to know that the way that person turned on that person can be the same way that person will turn on us. And the next thing you know, we in court trying to argue for our lives that we did represent that person to the fullest extent that we could, or that we did not do something, or we, should not be in front of the bar trying to argue that we did something wrong, because we can tell when people are just pathological. And a lot of times that's when you see lawyers just go, nah, it's not even worth the money for me to continue to associate with this person.
And I always wonder when the opposing lawyer is going to quit. My ex's recent one, he quit this last year, but I saw him in court 5 times with judges just chew his ass out, say, this is garbage. Don't you ever bring this in front of me again. And I thought, well, that's it for him. He gets it. Let's move on.
I know sometimes therapists fire their clients. Like, you're not, you're holding, you're not taking any of, the things we've talked about and changing your behaviors. I mean, have you ever had to fire a client?
Listen, I've never had to fire a family law client. Now, I did have to remove myself from a defense case. I had to petition for the judge to remove me because I just had somebody that it turned into, when I was visiting him in jail, it turned into all of a sudden we went together. It was he got kind of caught in his head, and then the letters and the car, and it was just too much. I knew I wasn't going to be able to represent him because, to be honest, I didn't even think I could sit next to him in court and let him even focus. So I had to petition it, and the judge did let me off of that case. I've never had to do a family law case, though. No.
Can I ask you an honest question? Now, is it harder as a beautiful woman to do what you do, to do your profession? I mean, you just described a situation where, a jailhouse situation where somebody's inappropriate in there. But have you noticed it is harder throughout your career when you have a certain look, or when you're beautiful?
Oh, that's so sweet. Well, thank you so much for saying that. I mean, look, I will say this to you. This is a lot of makeup. I don't wake up like this. I'm not Beyonce. All right. And so, and also I was kind of the nerdy girl that was never the pretty girl growing up. And so I relied on my brain. I've always been the smart one. So if it was like me and a friend or me and a family member, I wasn't the cute one. I was the friend. So, but I always tell people, always just let life play out, because it worked for me, because I have a lot of friends that lived off pretty. And when that faded, they ain't had nothing else to live off of, right? And so for me, I believe this intellectual currency has kind of taken me much further than this face of makeup ever could, although we cannot underestimate the power of, right? Um, appeal, physical appeal, whether it comes to courtrooms or, and you know, we will as attorneys get the edge in whatever way that we can. And that does not mean that we're doing things inappropriate, but you also know that, and it doesn't even men too, you know which judges you need to make sure you suited and you know what I mean, and looking right for. You know which judge that is, and you don't play. You come in there looking appropriate, and you make your client. I can't tell you how many of my clients I've dressed over. I mean, I used to carry ties in my trunk. Like, oh no, 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 no. We're not going in there like that. We're not going to get what we're going out for with what you got on. What you mean? I'm telling you what I mean. You're going to go find yourself a suit or a suit coat and a tie, because this judge does not play that. And I'm wearing my best suit in here for this judge. So yes, to be clear, there are circumstances where you know your appearance matters.
Yeah. Do you love the courtroom fashion? Did you love putting together like a power suit? And I mean, I have to ask a couple superficial questions.
No. So superficial. And it's so funny you said that, Monica, because you know I'm always joking about my carpool collection. Now, my courtroom collection, honey, was not to be played with. Okay. And one of my favorite, it was so funny. I did a promo shoot for my old court show in this outfit because it reminded me my favorite was a red power suit with a leopard shell underneath. Honey, when I showed up in that with a black pump,
Totally.
please know I'm coming to win. Okay. Please know that I'm not playing no game.
What was did we have like a special briefcase or a special bag?
Yes, always a black Gucci briefcase.
Love it.
Yes, and it's so, you're so funny you're saying this because I still have my briefcase. It's like a little
memento
thing, a memento for me. Yeah, because I haven't been in the courtroom in many, many years. I've been doing TV now probably for the last 20 something years, but I keep that black briefcase always as a reminder to me.
And what about the power suit? Do we still have that?
So no, I can't get in it. No, I'm gonna have to get that away because look, I'm about 30 pounds away from that power suit. that was the pre-baby body.
Pre-baby,
okay.
Yes. I also own pre-baby things.
Yeah. We're giving thick and fabulous right now. It's curvy, okay.
I love it.
But I got another one, and I used it for that photo shoot. But it was definitely the red power suit with the leopard shell, or a black power suit with a leopard shoe. And I did my pilot for Paternity Court in that with a leopard shoe. I was like, if I put these leopard shoes on, this show getting picked up.
Yes.
And it
oh my God. I love that your shoes are like crystals in your bra.
Yes.
Who produced Paternity Court?
Paternity Court was David Armour was the creator and executive producer, and we were with MGM Orient TV.
Oh yeah, that's good. Okay, that's good. Now, what I just want to say again, your parents did an amazing job. Amazing job focusing on the intellect, and your personality is always who you were, and you got this extra thing, which is great. I do have to ask, sometimes you do hear of lawyers falling in love with their death row guys and helping them break out of prison or something. How does that make you feel when you hear a story like that?
Those stories are always epic, right? And I always laugh because I say that lawyer must have met their match, right? Because as lawyers, we have the power of persuasion. That's what makes you a great lawyer. We are simultaneously, we're not just persuading the jury or the judge, we're also have to persuade our client, right, to understand what it would take to resolve this. So when a lawyer gets in these crazy situations, it reminds you, number one, that while we are lawyers, still just human beings, right? Still just human beings. Many lawyers like me, I mean, we represent people through family law sagas, and we still have been through divorce. We're still human beings first, far before, with our own issues, our own insecurities, our own shortcomings. And so when these crazy sagas happen, it really is kind of like an unveiling, or right, where you realize somewhere down in there, a little person was a little off, that inner child was a little off, if they felt that, right? And it doesn't mean that they're not smart people or intellectual. I should more say, maybe it's not smart, but intellectually capable, right? We have extremely intellectually capable murderers. They're not good people, but they're intellectually capable, So, and let's be clear, they're in prisons. I always tell people, we've created a society, this kind of myth of like everyone in prison is like, borderline illiterate and, and downtrodden. No, it's some straight A peoples sitting straight up behind those bars. Okay. It's some and even if they're not straight A's, very intellectually capable sitting there. And so could maybe charm you.
Yeah, very manipulative. They're so good at what they do. And my sister, who was very smart, she had a huge business. She was the biggest drug dealer in America. Like, she had a huge business, and but she ended up going to prison twice because she had that thing. She's doing good now, but I think that also, I always assumed that some women went, men have been treated me like crap. They've cheated, they've done whatever. I know where this guy's going to be. He's on death row. This seems like a good. I keep track of this guy.
And, oh my God. Well, hey, that's true. But they should also know that it's a whole bunch of other girls that's answering the phone and answering letters too.
Yes.
That's people get their feelings hurt too, dealing with guys sometimes in prison, and vice versa, because look, they got all day. when they get their phone call, they got probably 2, 3, 4, 5 people to call. And and then it becomes a way for them to just find something to do to tick the time away. So I don't think that we need to assume that fidelity is necessarily a part of the relationship just because you know where they are. Just because you know where they are, you don't know what they're doing. Mm-hmm. And they have relationships in prison, but do we want to go there? Right. Okay, a lot of them have full-blown relationships in prison.
Maybe prison's like Vegas. What happens in prison stays in prison.
Exactly.
But I was going to touch on the parenting thing that Tom brought up. I don't know if Tom's heard some of your episodes, but I do believe that I feel just from as a listener that you have passed on amazing parenting to your son. Yes. And one of the statements you made one day has really stuck with me, where you were talking about parents who bribed their children to get good grades. And yes. I was bribed. It was like, okay, you get a $20 for every A or whatever. And again, I never really cared. It was about money, but whatever. But I love that you told your son, you should want to be excellent.
Yeah.
And I just think that's beautiful.
I got that from my mother. I remember coming home. Somebody told me at school they were getting $25 for every A, 15 for a B. And honey, I quickly did the math on the way home. Like, I could pretty much be rich. So somebody needs to get on this program in my house. And I never forget, my mom was sitting at the kitchen table. I think she was grading papers. And I was like, so mom, and I pled my case, right? And she just looked up so matter of fact, like, and she says, why would I pay you to do something you should want to do? You should want to be excellent. Why would I pay you to do that? And I mean, my mother was, listen, she wasn't a lawyer, but she was the queen of asking you a question where the answer was embedded in it. I mean, she was the queen of that. I learned how to ask all my good leading questions from my mother, because she would ask you something and you spend the rest of the night, honey, going, well, I don't know. I mean, yeah, I do want to be excellent. I don't know why somebody should pay me. And the next thing you know, that was a dead story in our house. And I have always, and I do that for CJ as well, because he has friends that get paid for their grades. And he says, no, my mother would never do that. And he's a straight A student, a 4.2 student, because he wants to be excellent, right? And I think that, and look, I do believe that there are good theories behind that, right? Everything requires a motivation. So I don't knock parents that choose to do it. It's just not how we do it in my house.
And I love that. I feel like you have a great co-parenting relationship. I
We
feel like
do.
you guys are at the football games and all of
All
that.
everywhere.
And
We
I
do
love,
everything together. Because I
yeah,
do think when it comes to divorce, I think as well that something we don't talk about a lot, because we do hear about a lot of contentious stories. And let's be clear, those are often the most interesting stories, right? But there are situations where people aren't married anymore, not because they don't love each other, not because they don't want the best for each other, and not even because they don't want to be married. It just becomes clear that they can't be the best versions of themselves or the version they need to be for themselves in that institution. And
yes,
I think, and talk about this on Jeff, and I've been very, open about this, because I don't talk a lot about, my divorce from my son's dad, because I also am very clear about what I know he can read, or because that's one thing we have to understand. You're not just really telling your business at a certain point, you're telling the child's, right? The child at some point can go. And so I'm very careful about what I talk about. But what happened for us is, we were 10 years apart. I was 10 years older than I am 10 years older than my son's dad. And when we were at a certain age, that 10 years felt like this. And then when you get older, it begins to grow, right? And this is something and it doesn't happen for everybody, but it did for us.
sure.
Where you begin to say, like, wow, 30s to 20, 30s to late 20s feels like a smaller gap. Late 40s to late 30s, it starts feeling, because when you're in your late 40s, you're heading to that huge milestone of 50. You begin to think about your life. How do I do this? How do I retire? I mean, you're in the entertainment business. We're just trying to figure out, how do we keep working? How do we do this? Then you're with someone who's in their late 30s. They're still making all their 30-something-year-old mistakes, right? And then you're going like this, and you have to say, you know what? We're not going like this because we hate each other. We're going like this because I don't want to be 39 again. I already did all my 39-year-old crap and messed up and started over. And when you're 39, that's what you need to be doing, because that is what sets you up to be 49 going on 50.
Yeah.
But I don't want to do that, right? And for the other person who may be younger, it's that constant feeling of like, I've got to rise to the occasion every day. Every day I must rise to the occasion to be a near senior citizen, because that's who I'm married to. Sometimes it's too much. And so you have to make that tough decision to say, I didn't want to do this. I didn't want to do, but it's what's best. And because we were able to do it, and I'm not saying it was all roses. Divorce is hard no matter what, even when you love each other and don't hate each other. It just sucks, right?
Yeah.
Let's just be clear. But we made a promise to one another that no matter what, I don't care how mad you got on my nerves. I don't care if we cursed each other out for 2 hours the night before. The next morning, you're going to find a way to show up in front of this child with, some type of love and appreciation for the other person. And it has just worked for us. And it becomes like riding a bike. I mean, I will still piss him off. He will still piss me off. And then when we get to the game, or we're at CJ's game, and it'll be like, well, I'm not sitting with him. And then next thing you know, here I go, I sit my butt down next to him like, well, I want a Gatorade too. You know what I mean? Like, you just start a conversation.
Yeah.
You want some popcorn from concession? Oh, and it is that. And the next thing you know, we're drinking Gatorades and eating popcorn, and it's like, whatever. And then that way, when the game is over, CJ doesn't have to be looking at him going, well,
Or who do I go to dinner with?
Right. Do I want to go to eat with mommy, or I got to go to eat with dad? No, we all going to eat. We all going to eat at the same place. And if we're dating anybody, y'all coming too. It's just,
I love that.
We have made that happen.
Yeah.
But that has taken a lot of work, a lot of just, humility, right? Like saying, you as Lauren is not more important. The way I feel is not more important than the way our little family unit operates for the child. Now, when we ain't around our child, we do it. I mean, you do whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
But when that child is around, he just doesn't make those choices. And I will say, my son has said to me more than one time, he'll say, I'm so glad that I don't have to do like the other kids, and that I don't have to choose to go to this house or to this house or to that house, right? But that has come from, even me growing up. My parents got a divorce in my life, and I remember the kind of that contentious period, where everybody's trying to figure out their roles, right? And I remember always going to my dad's house in the morning on Christmas, and then there was the drive between my dad's house to back to my mom's for the party in the evening. So we just like do two parties. And I remember my brother would be driving, and we'd go back, and the whole ride from that house to my mother's, I'd cry because I didn't want to leave my dad, right? And also before that, my dad would always come over for Christmas, but then once my mom remarried, right, the partner wasn't really about all of that togetherness, right? So then there becomes a thing where what I used to do, maybe when we were both single, I have to be respectful of and so then and I remember the change. And I remember in my mind saying to myself, if I ever got a divorce or if I have children or whatever, I was like, I'm going to be upfront with people. Like, if you can't handle what we're doing here, I respect that, but I'm going to be doing it for a long time. And I'm not going to change it. And I don't. I mean, we do everything together. I mean, we have to take the dog to get trained in the morning. We're going to all ride that 2.5 hours together to drop the dog off. I mean, because why not?
Yeah. Well, I feel like my whole, separation is similar to yours. We've spent every Christmas together, every Thanksgiving. And it's funny, my daughter, she'll be on, her iPad FaceTiming with friends. And one day I love to eavesdrop. And this little boy that she plays with was like, oh, your parents are divorced. Oh, that sucks. Or that's a bummer. And she goes, no, it doesn't. It's awesome. And so anyway, what game do you want to play? Like, she just like switched it back.
I love it.
Like, there's no conversation to be had. She's happy. I think most importantly, she knows she's loved. And I feel like, my situation, the way we treat each other is very similar.
You have to try. And look, it takes a lot of energy. I mean, let me be clear. This is not easy.
Not easy.
Not easy all the time, right? But
No.
you commit yourself to it, right? Because, there are people who may want to date you who are low key uncomfortable with all this togetherness, right? We got, okay, he gonna be there again. Yeah, he always gonna be there. Look at, like I say on my show, he is the father. Okay, right. Like he's gonna be there, right? Like, so it can be a little weird, but we've had that too. I mean, we've had couples say to us and laugh, we'll be out somewhere with the kids or at a school function, and they'll go, well, if this is what divorce looks like, we need to get a divorce because we laugh, we party. We just came from Yucca Valley. He didn't come for the whole time, but he came up for like half a Christmas Day after he did the other things he needed to do and stayed, and and he had his own room, and I had and we danced and did ugly sweaters. And look, that it's about making those memories, because one thing I'm learning as a parent of a 13-year-old, they're starting to get to that age where they don't want to be bothered with either one of us. Right. So just try to do the best you can with those few years you got, because like now he doesn't need mom or daddy really, and we're already laughing like, well, what we gonna do when he doesn't want to be bothered with us or when he leaves for college? I was like, well, we still going to lunch and we still going, because I'm like, you know what I mean? It's kind of like we're best friends. My son was like, so what are you and dad now? Like best friends? I'm like, kind of. We're kind of like best friends. We just get along. We know each other. We know the worst parts of each other.
It's true.
Served it up to the other person.
Listen, if you have a kid with someone and they see it come out of you one way or another, you guys are bonded.
Right. You know what I'm saying? Like it just is what it is. And I think that at the end of the day, divorce is so painful, right? I don't care what the circumstances. Some are more painful than others, of course, but divorce is so very painful. If you can find a strip of joy, if you can find a piece of reconciliation, if you can find just an ounce of forgiveness, right? With the understanding that I can forgive this because you are human and you are flawed. I might not forget it, right? I might not forget it, but I can find the ounce of that. And the reason why I can find it is because I too have done things that I wish maybe I had not done, or performed in ways that I knew I could do better. And if I could just craft these moments, these string these little pieces together around the few times, right, that I have to be in a room with you, right? Let's be honest. I'm not living with my ex. I mean, some people are, but there's just those moments, the school programs, the holidays for 4 hours, the trips. If I could string that together for that amount of time and be diplomatic, and I like what you were saying, Tom. At one point, you were talking about kind of like it doesn't make me feel better for my child to think badly of their parent. See, I don't like that either. Like, that doesn't, like, if the kid finds out like some of their dad's shortcomings, or like my shortcomings, that doesn't do any good for the other parent to just illuminate that, like, yeah, I told you your mom was bossy, I told you your mom was crazy, because it doesn't work. At the end of the day, the child can just look at you like, look, you made me. I always say, if you can go half on a baby, you need to be able to go half on a resolution.
Yeah.
People ask me, are you still friends with your first ex-wife, Roseanne? I go, listen, if we can be friends, we'd still be married. I have no need. I had no kids with her, no need. And to relate to your story, Roseanne, the first ex-wife, was 7 years older. And so I thought, okay, I got to do something different. So I married a woman from Michigan.
That's where I'm from.
Eastern Michigan. I know, Eastern Michigan. She was 21.
That's where my mother was a professor.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
Yeah, at Eastern Michigan University.
But I was 35, and it became pretty clear what you were saying. This is a young woman who had not had her 20s. And I'm 35, I'm kind of starting to, and that became a problem. I mean, she's doing great now, and we both have kids, we both have families, but I can see where that could be an issue. And if one person has had, I'd had some success and I'd had this happen, so I just assumed that would be great for her. And my dreams, here's my dreams, and I assume you're all on board on this, but it is a real, sometimes it doesn't quite work out.
Yes, and you don't know it till you're in it.
Yeah, it makes me happy though, hearing about you and your ex, and showing up for your kids and doing stuff. It is just much easier. It's much easier to show up somewhere and the kids are playing something and it's not weird. My ex-mother-in-law wanted to come over to see my daughter's thing that we built out back. And man, I was, super kind to her, super kind to pretend, with my ex too. Hi, would you like to see what we built over here? We built a shed in the back with my daughter's stuff. But I could do that. I could do that. Because it's my kids. I'm not gonna. I can fake it, man. Fake it till you make it, man.
It's a character. We're just playing a character until it becomes real.
Well, yeah, you do. And I always tell people, because people would say that to me all the time in court. I love my child, Your Honor. I'd do anything for my child. Oh, my favorite saying, because I'd go, so you'll do anything for them. Would you just hold your tongue for 2 hours so that they didn't have to take in the energy and the negativity? Could you forgive your ex for things that that hurt you deeply, just enough to get you through the high school graduation? Look, you can pull off in your car after that and curse them out and talk about them like a dog to your girlfriend. But just for those 2 hours, could you just, if you're going to do anything for your kid, because at the end of the day, the kids want that more than they want the latest iPhone.
Yes.
They'd rather have that. And it's not possible for everybody.
Yeah.
But if it is possible for you, then could you just at least try?
And it costs you nothing.
Free.
No, and it is possible because you do love your kids so much.
Yeah.
There's also little victories that you get along the way. Like my daughter, when she would visit her mom, she would always make her play one of my movies in her mom's apartment. It just taught me so much because I just knew that the mom was like, "You got to be kidding." She didn't even allow my movies in the house when we were together, and but kids are, it's a wonderful thing. I think in my situation too, when you go back over, say, what was my part in this? What surely, and somebody's been divorced as much as me, and I always say you can get divorced 3 times and still kind of go, yeah, crazy women. But you get divorced 4 times, you go, oh my God, it's me. What is,
Yeah,
and you
I get it.
you go back to that thing because the judge will say, go back to when you loved each other. Go back to, and sometimes when you go back far, you realize, oh no, it's always been like this. And one thing I've always done is document, because I became a dad at 54, from the births, my kids' births, to all the way through all the stuff we do together, video, film, or pictures. And I'm grateful about that. Number one, I'm getting older and I forget stuff, and the kids, but you can look and go, oh, there was never a time when there was this family thing or Christmas together, or it was never, even before it just, so everything new is our own experience.
Yes.
One question I want to ask before we wrap it up, and then I want to plug all the things.
Yeah.
So you have a book.
Yes, I wrote a book years ago called Girl, Let Me Tell You. Well, this was written, I wrote it years ago, probably 2007. I want to say 2000, yeah, 2007, maybe 2008. And it was at that time I was single. I had been on a show, a dating show, way back before there was reality TV. That a production company called September Films came over to New York, and they wanted to chronicle the lives of real life Sex in the City style women, like women who were dating in New York.
Oh,
And
cool.
and literally I had no idea, but when you went to the cocktail party, there was an invite that if you go to the cocktail party, a man can't come unless they're accompanied by 2 women. My brother was visiting me in New York. I lived there then. He was like, it's going to be a lot of girls in there. And he was recently divorced. So he was like, you're taking me in there, right? And I was like, okay, we'll go. So we're drinking, and literally on a dare, he says to me, I dare you to go down and talk to those TV producers about what it's like to date the way you tell me your stories about dating. And of course, I mean, it doesn't matter how old you get. It's like my big brother, and he dared me. I'm like, don't dare me, And there I go marching down the stairs, and I'm in front of this camera now, and I begin to talk about, what dating was like, for me. Fast forward, I end up getting the show, one of 8 women to get this show. And out of all these actresses and models, I didn't even know what it was. But I almost got kicked out of the show because I didn't have any dates. But lo and behold, and tragically, the September 11th happened. And they never got to come and reshoot any parts of the show. So they had to go with the show as is. And then in some crazy turn of events, I became a breakout character because I did not have dates. The women related more to me that I didn't have any, to the girls who were like out sleeping with everybody and, doing what they thought was going to be the interesting thing. More women were like that. I'm like, Lauren, I'm working, I'm doing this. People don't ask me out, Right. And so that became kind of the setup for television and how I got there. Did I forget the question? What'd you tell me?
Oh, I was asking about the book, but also
and that's how I wrote the book. The book became that, about dating sagas.
I gotta read the book because Monica knows I haven't had a date in 6.5 years, although I sort of had a date last week in Buffalo. So it's hard when you have kids and you're always thinking of these things. Last thing I want to say to you too is I don't like to root for Michigan. I'm an Iowa Hawkeye. You guys did horrible things to us this year in the Big Ten championship.
That's okay, but love Cade. Cade McNamara used to be our quarterback at Michigan.
That's right.
And then he left. He was a big mentor to CJ. He used to help out at Jordan Palmer's quarterbacks camp. And my son has one of his most proudest moments hanging out with Cade. So we still love Cade.
Well,
but go blue.
I'm rooting for you guys at the Rose Bowl versus
Alabama.
I mean, anyway, it'll be great. It'll be great fun.
Go blue.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you
Such
so
a fun combo.
I had a great time chatting with you guys. It's so great.
Well, how can people watch your show?
So We the People, check your local listings. It's syndicated. And you can also see it on Justice Central TV. Paternity Court is still on the air all over the country as well. And I have a new show, Paternity Matters, which is a show that I created, produced, and financed on my YouTube channel, which is Judge Lauren Lake TV, where I am still recognizing great fathers, helping people reconcile their relationships with their fathers, and helping people resolve issues of paternity, figuring out whether they are or are not the father. And you can follow me at all platforms at Judge Lauren Lake TV.
Amazing. You're the absolute best. Thank you.
Thank you.